The best way to understand academic queer theory is to actually take a look at individual academic queer theorists. And these are people who oftentimes use obscure language, complex Latinate phrasing, and this academic jargon that makes their work impenetrable to the average reader, supposedly. But when you actually look at the people, when you look at the specifics of their work and when you dig into it, you realize that a lot of this is solipsism, narcissism, and vanity packaged in obscure language, but it's utterly vapid and empty of any real intellectual content. I discovered a clip that illustrates this principle beautifully. This is a person named Trace Peterson, a trans visiting assistant professor at the University of Connecticut. Mix Peterson has had previous posts at many prestigious universities. This person has taught at Yale. This person has taught at Emory. This person has received government grants from the prestigious National Endowment for the Humanities. And I found a clip, however, that calls into question not just the discipline of academic queer theory, but all of the institutions that support this kind of work. This is a clip from a poem written by Trace Peterson, performed at a poetry seminar at San Francisco State University, and you have to see it to believe it.
Everyone is a little trans. Everyone is a little bisexual. Everyone is a little genderqueer. Everyone is a little not there. Everyone is a little enby. Everyone is a little genderfluid. Everyone is a little 12-inch pianist. Everyone is a little cis. Everyone is a little circular rubbing motion. Everyone thinks they're Billy Ocean. Everyone is a forgotten hit record. Everyone is a little good at sex. Everyone is a little bad at gender. Everyone is a little changeable. Everyone is a little rigidly stuck in their thing. Everyone is a post office worker. Everyone is an abandoned carousel with empty horses going around and around and around.
And so, I mean, in a sense, it leaves you speechless. I mean, this is the most comically bad poetry. I had to double check if it were a parody or some kind of elaborate practical joke, but no, this is not just a real poem. This is a real poem that is being, in a sense, subsidized by taxpayers through things like NEH grants, through positions at public universities, through institutions like San Francisco State, University of Connecticut, that have enabled the academic career of Trace Peterson. And this is the academic output. So we're paying for scholarship and knowledge, and the poem, Everyone is a Little Trans, is what we get at the outcome level. But there are three things I think we need to look at to really understand what's going on beyond just the fact that this is a ridiculous thing. I mean, this is the kind of queer theory in a nutshell, first of all. You know, what is queer theory? You have, of course, pioneering works. You can disagree with Michel Foucault, but you have to admit that Michel Foucault had a lot of brilliant ideas. He was a serious scholar. And in some places, I agree with his analysis, even if I disagree with his conclusions. But you have to take someone like that seriously. Modern queer theory, however, contemporary queer theory, is like a game of Mad Libs. Look at this poem. Everyone is a little trans. Everyone is a little enby. Everyone is a little genderqueer. You have to have a kind of childlike repetition of phrasing and syntax littered with all of the magic words of queer theory. Everyone is a little, gender nonconforming. And just by speaking the magic words, just by playing queer theory Mad Libs, by bringing in some of the vocabulary from the academic literature, it takes on the air and the authority of something that is substantive and academic. But what happens is that they can only convince themselves. And when this clip is exposed to the public, I think we're going to see immediate kind of derision, ridicule, mockery, and laughter, which of course is the proper reaction to a poetry of such low and embarrassing quality. The second thing that I think this clip reveals is the true nature of the academic hierarchy. And so, if you are trying to make a career in an academic field, the best thing for you to do as a white biological male is to become a white gendered female. You may not be able to change your race, you may not be able to change other immutable characteristics, but a tried and true career path for advancing in academia, advancing in government bureaucracy, is to be the trans woman. We've seen this, of course, in the Biden administration, where obscure officials have risen to prominence because of their gender transition and their new gender identity. And of course, this is tried and true technique also in academia. You talk to many academics, it's kind of notoriously difficult for white men to advance in the current kind of hiring process, where in many cases universities are explicitly advertising we are not going to hire oppressor groups or privileged groups. We have an only hiring process that is engaging in active and sometimes very overt racial discrimination, sex discrimination, in order to create a more diverse academy. And of course, disciplines like critical race theory, disciplines like queer theory are explicitly saying we're going to create an apparatus in order to advance people, not for the quality of their work. I mean, Trace Peterson, I looked at his CV. It's not great, but actually advancing the identity and advancing political activism. So in this case, you have identity as a stand-in for quality scholarship. And we've seen that replicated throughout the academy. And the third thing, and I think that this is really the most serious, is, well, how does power work in these institutions? This poem, this poem is a few years old, although it was just now rediscovered here for the first time. Was done at the San Francisco State University Poetry Symposium. So again, a public institution. This person later was subsidized by the federal government through the grant-making process, and is currently a visiting assistant professor at the most prestigious public university in the state of Connecticut. And so this kind of revolving institutional structure that creates sinecures, that creates permanent grant funding, that creates public subsidies. So taking from every plumber, every waitress, and every janitor in the state of Connecticut, part of their state tax is going to subsidize poems like "Everyone is a Little Trans." And so, in one sense, these are pennies on the dollar, right? Kind of fractions of a penny. But when you build this up over time, you create a permanent subsidized apparatus that can't be destroyed easily, that can't be reformed easily, that creates a fake layer of activist bureaucracy that could never stand on its own. This kind of poetry could not survive in a commercial marketplace. This kind of poetry would have a bit more difficulty surviving in a philanthropic marketplace. And this kind of poetry, if taxpayers actually expressed their will, if they were given a ballot initiative to say, hey, yes or no, do we want to subsidize this? They would say 100% no, 90% no, maybe 70% no in Connecticut. But because these institutions have been hijacked by ideological activists that have abandoned the pursuit of knowledge and serious scholarship in favor of identity and activist politics, these things are not just surviving, but they're thriving within this integrated bureaucratic apparatus that spans government, that spans philanthropy, that spans media and other institutions that are all create a kind of buffer zone for the kind of poetry, academic this isn't T.S. Eliot. This is Trace Peterson, the great trans poet of Connecticut, which again would have very much difficulty surviving if taxpayers had a choice. And so what is the solution to this? I think first is exposure. I discovered this clip. We're going to actually blow this clip up now. I think that's something that's important to be doing. But secondly, it's for policymakers to say, hey, wait a minute. If I'm in a red state, like Texas, like Idaho, like Tennessee, like Florida, are we funding stuff like this? Are we funding gender studies, queer theory, trans narcissistic poetry readings? Is this a public priority? Given the fact we have limited dollars, given the fact that we are the stewards of the public money and the ultimate governing authority over the public universities, let's make sure that we're putting that dollar to the best use. We're pursuing serious scholarship. We're pursuing concrete and objective knowledge. We're pursuing the principles and values that are expressed in the academy that reflect the will of the public, the taxpayer, and the voter. And so what we're going to be doing is finding these little nuggets, finding these little pivot points, finding these little kind of outrages, these little absurdities, and actually connecting them beyond the simple kind of point and look. We're going to say, well, wait a minute. How does this happen? How is this brought into being? And how can we stop it?